One. All right, so talking with Ed Galvez, who's known
Hey,
apparently as the Pizza Possum when it comes to all things Zoom.
I
And
is
Ed was a very big part of Radio Titans as far as you were co-host for, God, like 2 years or more of Grown Ass Men, which was kind of like the show that started after Grand Theft Audio when things went south with those guys, which are now we're all buddies again. But anyway, but Grown Ass Men was like a new version of that, and it started with me, Sal Rodriguez, and Clive Aiden. And my goal was to make it like The View, because Grown Ass Men was three white guys. We were all funny, I think, but I thought, if I'm going to do this, I should get a black guy and a Latino guy, and really have like the breadth of experiences and viewpoints, whatever. And then when Sal had to leave or chose to leave after a year, I said, "Hey, Ed Galvez, I think you're Latino, and I thought you were a funny guy, so I brought you in, and you were there for Maria Shahada was there replacing Clive, and for whatever reason thought it was funny to keep the name Men." And then you were there when she left, and Christina Myers Hepburn took over. So we're going to talk about all that shit. Um, yeah. So anyway, so Ed, my recollection of how I met you was that I went to Santa Monica to the West Side Comedy Theater because I knew you ran a show called Punk House, and I only sporadically actually made the effort to actually go out and do open mics and shows. But in my head, I always wanted to do more of it. So I thought, oh, I'm going to go there. I love that club. But it was like Wednesdays at 10, so it was really hard for me to handle that time. But I remember I met you there, but I can't really remember how we clicked enough to start doing the podcast together. I don't know if we were buddies or if I just maybe really did just ask you as another funny Latino guy that I knew. I don't know.
I think when we actually talked was like I had done your the show that was in the lobby of the Gaylord.
Oh yeah, pajama party.
Yeah, I'd done like a couple pajama parties, and then I think I was when we were at that building where the Sheraton is. I don't know what you call that building.
The Macy's Plaza is where we the block. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was coming out of doing Little Ethnic Girls, and then I went
Okay.
into the kitchen area, and you were there, and then you had asked
Probably
me.
asleep.
You were standing, but that is still possible. And then you had asked me, and I was just like, yeah, message me. And then I think I ended up coming in like the next week or 2 weeks later. And it was like you, me, and Clive at first for a while.
Yeah.
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 And
then eventually Maria.
Yeah. But that was great because I'd known Maria for years before that also. So like we'd always been very close. So so that wasn't that was a very easy transition for me.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you do you have any particular memories of favorite, like who were your favorite guests over time, or was there anybody that you were like, holy crap, I can't believe we just had that person in the room?
Over the years, it was cool having Kozlowski, Paul Rodriguez, Jerry Stahl was a very awesome one. And then like I had a lot of fun bringing in people like Jerry Rocha or Dwayne Perkins, and so like it was always an adventure. it was always interesting trying to get people to find their way through the Macy's.
That's right. Yeah.
During the show, trying to direct him to the secret elevator to get him.
Yeah, that's right. It was always like frantic texts were involved, people running out of the room to, oh, I got to take the call, or I got to direct them, or whatever. Yeah, it was nuts. Yeah, but I mean, what did you think of one thing that people seem to have a lot of fun comments on, so I'm throwing it out there, is like, so many people podcast out of just their apartments or something like that. And granted, there's a couple other legit studios, like All Things Comedy, I think, has a good one, and I'm sure there's some others. But most people, I'd say 90% of podcasts are people screwing around in their friends' kitchens, which we eventually did do. But I mean, what did you think of the whole vibe of being downtown? And did that add anything to it, or anything funny or cool about it?
No, when it was there, it definitely added, some legitimacy to it. It was definitely kind of a cool experience for people to go in through that kind of like city feel, the offices and everything, to kind of like to distract from our makeshifting everything.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so and what did you think? I'm getting a little out of order here, but why not? Like when we wound up having to decamp to the Gaylord, some people have brought up my horrible cleanliness habits, but they also point out, well, that was kind of a cool building to walk into, but just in general, what did you think of that? Was that a disappointment after downtown, or was it? You can say whatever you want. This is a warts and all movie, yeah.
Honestly, all right. So, I've been doing comedy since 2000.
Yeah.
So I'm the king of improvising with what we got. So definitely it was definitely like an adjustment going from the Macy's Tower to your studio apartment. But it's just like whatever, like I said, like I'm so used to improvising with what we got, so just kind of like, okay, is this what we're doing? All right,
Yeah.
If anything, the only like big thing was just kind of like inviting like female guests to come to the Macy's Tower. Seemed legit. Inviting female guests to go to your studio apartment. Just
where there's a bed 10 feet from the table.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. If that.
Yeah.
I've gotten a few comments on that one. So yeah, well, then any memories of like weird things that happened or whatever? I don't know. I mean, because our show was a pretty freewheeling thing. Maybe there wasn't anything that odd. I don't know, but just putting out the broad question.
I mean, it was always just kind of like plugging holes on a sinking ship, just because of like trying to like text people to come up, and then or like you'd like spill a cup like on the table during interviews, or like someone would be calling in like while you were interviewing someone that was live in the audience, and then like stop talking to them to take a phone call from the guy that played Cameron. I think there was a time when it was you were interviewing some guy from the LA Times, and he had a book.
About John Hughes. Yeah. My laptop is sitting atop that book right now. That's what I used to prop it up. Yeah.
And then like you had spilled a cup of water, and then the guy was being very polite, but also kind of like not sure what was going on. And then like you stopped talking to him to take the call from Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I remember just laughing, just trying to imagine what's going on inside the head of that one guy. I
always wondered why he never wrote me back again after I guess. Because not only was I asleep, Ed, but like since moving to Little Rock, I got diagnosed as having Asperger's, which can make you clueless socially, and then to complete the trifecta, bipolar. So it's like, I was easily excitable, easily distracted, always asleep. I mean, it was just a bad combination. But I think we had fun. It was cool, right?
Oh yeah, it was totally fun, and
Yeah.
it was totally like a learning experience. Just the mic time, the meeting people. Like there was always, especially like early on in comedy, like you're always like, uh, say yes to things and do things just for experiences, and there was like a ton of experiences being had throughout the whole, or at least my arc in there,
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
from like Clive to Maria, going from that place to your place,
Yeah.
and so yeah.
And any thoughts, like, we're going to be touching on the sitcom also. So you were involved were you in all three versions or just the last two versions? I forget. I shot it three times, the stupid thing.
All three versions.
Like, what
And
the hell were you thinking about that?
Every time I swore it was the last time that I was going to do it.
Oh no. Yeah.
I think the main reason why I said okay was just because Kozlowski said yes all three times, and I was just like, oh, fuck. Well, and I think Christina talked me into the last time.
Yeah. Well, that one turned out pretty good finally, but yeah, the first two, it was like, oh my god, But yeah, so I mean, I just remember Tobolowsky telling me I'm going to be interviewing him tomorrow, but he told me he was like, Carl, the third time, this has to be the charm. No more. This is turning into real life Groundhog Day. And I was like, oh yeah. So I don't know. I mean, probably the only show that tried three times to make a pilot and still didn't click it in the end. But any other thoughts or memories about that? Like, I don't know if you have anything funny that stood out in your head from doing those.
I mean, look, there was always something of note in all three swings at that. I mean, the first one, I mean, your camera guy, director, I don't know what his title was.
Andre,
yeah. I mean, he was great, but it's just kind of like when you're shooting something and it's on a phone, it was just like hard to take anything seriously, from there.
Yeah.
And it's, I think in general, like people take you as serious as you take things serious, it's kind of like when you first want to do the table read for the pilot, and you want to do it at the Jack in the Box on Cahuenga and Sunset, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
I forgot about that.
Oh, and you're like, oh, should we go someplace nicer, like the Veggie Grill across the street? I was just like, no. Like, I was like, you have a fucking conference room like at Macy's, and you're like, oh, will people go there? I'm like, people will go there instead of going, because that Jack in the Box is basically like runaways and homeless people.
It is,
like, it's it's a reference point. People were making memes saying that if you have eaten at this Jack in the Box, don't be concerned about what's in the vaccine.
That's funny as hell.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then like so we go do the table read at there, and yeah, no, it's like you got a little platter of pinwheels and some chips, and it just like it takes very little to give people a little bit of confidence in what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're trying to get tables that are next to each other at a Jack in the Box. It's just like,
I know.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And the Andre thing, I'm trying to remember.
Well, the second
Um,
one was the British lady, but what I remember about her, except I'm probably not going to put this in the movie because, like, she's about the only person that refuses to talk to me, um, and because it was a frustrating experience for her. But the problem was the thing I remember that was kind of funny was, even though it was terrible, was when we first met to do the table read with her. She goes, "So Ed, what makes you funny?" And she meant it like as a character, I think. But
oh,
I, in my, at least, I don't know if you really took offense, but I was like, "Oh my God, that sounds so horrible," and and then she was such a like the problem was, or a large part of the problem was that she was trying to do these overly elaborate camera setups, and a couple times, like, you weren't involved in one scene. We were at my newspaper office, and the actual office, right? And all we needed was to show it should have just been back forth, zippy lines, kind of like what we pulled off in the third one in my apartment. That one zipped along, but what she did at our newspaper, it was me and two or three other actors, and she just went around this round table really slowly. And it's like, why are we watching this thing in the round? And it was so distracting that it was driving us all nuts. And then finally, my editor, he agreed to sneak us in for 4 hours. We weren't supposed to be there, and right in the middle of, while she's taking forever doing this circular thing, he just goes, "All right, God, that's it. I said 4 hours. It's 4 hours." And he just like ended the scene like abruptly. So it was just the most bizarre thing. We had to cut the scene out of the movie or out of the show. It was just nuts. But I remember that that everybody, that some of the people were going, "She's shooting this way too crazy for a comedy." Like, all the odd angles and stuff, that it just wouldn't add up being funny. And that was a big part of the problem, I think. I don't know.
I don't think I know it was
Okay.
a big part of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, look, as far as that lady goes, I'll say, you know what? I never seen anything else she's done.
Yeah.
She's probably good at it. I mean, you brought her in; she's probably good at something.
Yeah.
But I will say, people skills was definitely not a thing that she was good at. So we
Yeah.
went in for that table read, um, and normally a director would be like, have everyone read it just to see what people are bringing to the table, and then kind of like you see what pieces you got, and then you try to build from there. But before we even started reading it, she was telling us to, I forgot about, thank you for giving me another reason to resent her for, but she was just like, okay, read the line and ask yourself how that makes you feel, and then say it.
Oh,
And
that was
I was
weird.
just like,
Yeah.
it wasn't weird. It was fucking stupid, and it was condescending. It was just like she was trying to give us an acting lesson before she even saw what we had
Yeah.
to offer. And I'm not saying I'm that great, but I'm just saying, if you're dealing with new artists, see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like dismissed her in my head at that point. But I'm very like, I try to be professional and keep my eye on the prize, as far as like the eye on the prize was just doing the project. So
Yeah.
I was just like, but like she was definitely rude, and then
What about
and
the cat?
crazy.
There was a bizarre incident in your apartment where a
Yeah.
cat
Well,
attacked her or
well,
something.
you filmed, no, you didn't.
No, she freaked
You
out because when she was a kid, a cat had ripped her scalp, and she was like, she had
That's
no,
right.
she was like, "I didn't know there was a cat involved, and I didn't know that it even mattered. I never even thought to ask." I was with a
That's
friend of hers doing an interview separately for a podcast, and I was just coming there late, or not a friend of hers, but this lady dropped me off there, and it was just the most bizarre thing, because I'm getting all these texts going, "Oh my God, this is a nightmare, Carl. This is a disaster. Get over here." And I'm running over there wondering what is going on. And then I find out that she's got this complete shit fit over a cat. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because we filmed at my place the first time, and then that was when I was living on like Melrose and Fairfax. And then when you asked if we could use my place again, I was like, I moved, and because I'd moved, and that was where there was a cat, and she was, and like, and it wasn't my cat; it was my roommate's cat, who was nice enough to, because it was his place, that he was letting me stay at. So, and I really don't like this woman, and we're putting like my friend's cat in the room for 5 hours, so I was scared that the cat was gonna like,
Tear shit up.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's the whole no good deed goes unpunished thing. And she was, which you've still yet to pay me for that.
Oh, okay. I will do it. Okay. Yeah. Send me your Venmo after. Seriously. Okay. So then.
So after that, but both with the Andre and this German lady, because I was
British.
working a bunch. Oh yeah. British.
But she acted German.
Yeah, like because I remember like being out in the freeze, like in the cold in my car, like outside of the barber shop, and like for like 4 hours, 5 hours and like there was only like a 2 liter of Coke and some like a half a bag of chips for the whole crew, and I was just like, all right, this is it, get through this. So that's one of the reasons why I was just kind of like, I don't want to do this ever again. But then Christina said that she was kind of helping with the directing with the third pass.
And
then the third pass, I'm trying to remember what were the let's see, I'm trying to remember what scenes I had. I mean, we did the Kozlowski thing again, and then we did, I'm trying to remember, the ice house.
And everybody was in costumes. I don't know if you have any thoughts about dressing up like an animal. You were I forget what animal you were. Scott was a shark.
I was raccoon.
Yeah. Well, here you are, the pizza possum.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know why it says that on there. I think I was doing game night with some friends like 6 months ago, and I just changed my name to that for whatever reason. Oh well. You've unmasked my superhero persona.
I know, right? But what did you think of the animal costumes?
Well, I mean, the raccoon was mine. It was already in my wardrobe.
Okay. I remember ordering. I was like, I remember ordering the other things, and it was just the most bizarre thing to see them all show up one at a time: an American flag, a shark, a fox, a bear, and unfortunately, I held on to those until when I moved home. My sister and brother came to help me. And there was something I had to do for a few hours one day, and they just thought, "Oh, those aren't clothes," and they threw them out in the dumpster without telling me.
Oh, wow!
I love those things. Anyway, I never wore them, but I love them.
Well, it's cold winters where you're at right now, so
I know
you could genuinely use them.
Dressing like a bear in the winter. Anyway, but So. Anyways, I think the third one definitely went better because Christina and Gina knew what the hell they were doing, and we got lucky. We did I had an actual sound guy for once, and then the camera crew was legit. That was somebody from CBS sitcom called Superior Donuts, and it was like the luckiest score in the world that this guy showed up with his two assistants, like a legit guy from a CBS show. So, yeah. But anyway, anything else that I'm missing that you think would be of interest or funny to people? We're gonna sort it all out down the line, obviously. But anything else that you can think of?
No, I mean, I think the screening was fun. We had that place on Sunset. And yeah. What is that British lady doing now?
Okay. Well, I didn't name her, so I'll go ahead and talk. I don't know. I mean, the weird thing, okay, because the weird thing is that basically this whole idea of the documentary, it all started as a therapy exercise. I'm not sure if I told you that or not, but my therapist, like I'm seeing a therapist like very seriously every couple of weeks. I probably should have been doing it forever. I did it sporadically over the years. But anyways, she said, you need to embrace your past and practice your interviewing skills and all this. And because I was getting rusty, I was hardly writing anything. And so she said, call up people and start, just do interviews for fun. And after about the first 10 or 12 that I made a list of, it was Jake Bowman who said, hey, we should make a real documentary. And it's turned into this epic thing. But what happened is, I mean, I've interviewed over 40 people now, I think, at this point. And the thing is that it coincided with, like, I joined a 12-step, not for drugs or alcohol. Those weren't my issues, but I have burned a lot of bridges over the years without even knowing what I was doing most of the time. And, that could be chalked up to the Asperger's and the bipolar. But the thing is, at the same time, it's like, if I'm going to own it, somebody told me there's a type of 12-step that does dysfunction also. And so I joined that, and I'm on the 8th step, just coincidentally. And that's where you make a list of all the people you wronged, and you reach out and you make amends, right? And so all this happened around the same time. So parallel to this, I'm also reaching out to old friends that I pissed off in various ways or whatever. And everybody but one or two has been really cool and of getting my friendships back. But Trudy, I'm going to say her name, but anyway, she, I reached out to her and she was like, okay, well, thanks. I'll forget this happened, but that's that. But she was really mad at me because because I don't know, were you there for the screening at her apartment of that second one?
Oh yeah.
Because what was weird was, okay, so I watched she did go to a lot of trouble to make the thing. And then I'm watching it, and it was like this weird vibe. Like, we had 2 legitimate audiences of about a dozen people each. And I roped in even my Uber driver that took me there. So I wanted real strangers mixed in, and everybody was, it was just there was just something about it that I just didn't like it at all. It was the camera angles. It was also like, I gave you and Christina really dumb, I didn't really think it through. I think the third one, you guys had funny lines and all that stuff. But the second one, I just had you guys, getting high with Jake. And it was like, why? Why would I reduce you 2 vibrant people to just like, okay, let's roll joints? And it was just stupid. And then but what was really weird was that Jake didn't make it to that and to that night. But like, at least, I don't know if it would happen at the one you attended, but at one of the 2 screenings, ran it twice that night. Everybody that knew who he was and had known that he had screwed me over in Hollywood were like, why is he on the show? And why would you ever do anything with this guy again? And then the people that didn't know him, they just hated him for some reason. And Trudy and I thought he was pretty funny. I thought he was okay in it, but there was this visceral, I would never watch a show with that guy. I mean, that kind of response. And I was like, holy shit. And so to me, it was like, you can't put out something that's so bad it'll ruin your reputation and everyone around you. So I nixed the first one that was shot on the phone. And then that one, when I saw the reaction of Jake and the weird camera angles, and like I said, my bad writing regards to you guys, I was like, oh my God. So I just kind of disappeared on her. And that was kind of a shitty way to handle it. But she wrote me irately, like several weeks later, was like, you know what you are? You're a guy who just wants to say he's got a show. and you want to say you've got a project, but you don't actually finish it. And like, I put a lot of work in this, and I do feel bad. But when I reached out to her, she was like, well, enough time's gone by and I still do lots of things. So like, she's a successful commercial director. She really does a lot of commercials, legit. And stylish ones like car commercials and shit like that. But so she was just like, okay, let's just call it even. I don't hate you, don't feel guilty, but I don't want to be your friend. That was really shitty. And I was like, wow, okay, but it was, I don't know. That's probably the one regret that I haven't been able to really make right with somebody. It's weird.
What's
So.
what's the name of this 12-step group? Is it
It's
Dysfunction
called
Anonymous?
Celebrate Recovery, and it's got a Christian angle to it. So I didn't want to shove that at you, but it's they're like a broader. They take the 12 steps. And like a friend, I was rolling my eyes when I heard about it, and I'm openly, I'm Catholic. I go to church, but I still was like, Christian 12 step. What the hell's that? And this friend of mine, I saw her really transform over a year. She had been abused as a kid, and somebody talked her into going, and her whole disposition has been night and day different. And she was going, you need to go to this. And I was like, I don't know. But a lot of my problems were getting really out of hand, even though I was getting healthy physically and officially mentally, as far as, I'm on the right meds and I'm going to therapy. But there was a lot of being at home around my folks. I'm finally moving out next month, but being around my folks, it was a very rough, emotionally, we were a very dysfunctional family in a lot of ways. And so being around it again, it wasn't a picnic for them either, having the 49-year-old son move back in, so it was getting really gnarly. And so I finally just said, okay, I'll go. And I went, and I was like, wow, I really like this. And the religion's a very small part of it, but it's really they read the 12 steps at every meeting, and then they just add a Bible verse that parallels it or something. But overall, it's just the same discussion as a normal 12 step. And so I don't know, but it worked for me. It's really, I feel so much better having done it, and I'm going to stick with it, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Have you interviewed your parents?
That would be a kind of a fun project. I should ask them.
That would be, I think that'd be huge for you and for them, and also just because you describing the thing of, for